Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today I'm going to be giving you 3 different builds for our Magicka Necromancer Voldemort. And one of the builds is our Horcrux Build, which is going to be kind of a middle of the road support build. You can also do damage with it, and I really like that build. It's great for starters. People that are new to Magicka Necromancer and don't necessarily want to run a Harmony setup. Anyways, the Horcrux build is perfect for that. And then as you get a little bit more advanced with a Magicka Necromancer, you want a little bit more damage, we're going to have the Avada Kedavra build. And that's going to feature some really good spell damage, and we'll be able to kill people very quickly with that build. And then the last build that we're going to show you today is called our Master of Death build. And this build is going to be strictly for Imperial City, and we are going to be running that build during Mid-Year Mayhem. And it's got some very scary stats to it. But anyways, let's jump in with the very first build. This is the Horcrux build. Alright, jumping right in, looking at the Horcrux build. The very first thing to note about this build is we are running the Pale Order, Ring of the Pale Order. And I do have the trait on it, still Bloodthirsty. I think that's important to have because we do not have an execute as Magicka Necromancer. No executes on this, so getting that Bloodthirsty, the little bit extra spell damage, as their health becomes lower, that works out very well. You can see the one piece bonus down here, restore 18% of the damage you deal as health up to a maximum of 2750 health per attack. You cannot be healed by anyone but yourself. And you not being able to be healed by anyone but ourselves is no problem, because the healing kit on a Magicka Necromancer, this build in particular, is very high. Our self heals is extremely adequate. It gets the job done for sure, and so we really don't need health coming in from outside sources. But if you don't want to run Pale Order on this particular setup, you could run Ring of the Wild Hunt, or you could put a regular jewelry piece here for one of the 5-piece sets that we're running, and you can run Torque Tonal Constancy, or don't run a mythic on any of these slots in the jewelry and just run a 2-piece monster set. So if you want to run Earth Gore or Troll King or whatever, because like I said, this build, the Horcrux build, is built around durability and your ability to be a support and throw out heals and help other people. We're not without teeth. We can damage people. We can put people away on this build though too. It has a pretty respectable 3200 spell damage, and if you wanted to push it to the 4K, you could. Here's an example right here of how we could get more spell damage. None of our jewelry on this particular build is infused with spell damage, so we can get another 300 spell damage right there, taking us to the 3500. And then on our back bar, we do not have a spell damage, infused spell damage glyph, which would almost be another 500 spell damage there, and so that would put us just below the 4K mark. Anyways, Pale Order, whenever you're running a mythic item, unless you're running a front bar back bar setup, it will break up your monster set, and that's what it's done here. So we only have a 1-piece monster set, and right now we're running Molokina. This is a 7 heavy build also, and we're able to get away with 7 heavy. It is a tanky meta right now, and if we're going to be a support and throwing out heals, we ourselves need to be tanky. But this monster piece right here could be whatever you want. So if you want to even get more armor, you could throw a monster set on there that offers armor. If you want more regen, throw that on here. This is completely flexible, and you can see right now I have the prismatic enchant on there, and this particular piece is reinforced. Impen would probably be the better way to go, but we're not going to change it. So the first set that we are running on our Horcrux build is going to be Mechanical Acuity. I can tell you this about a Mechanical Acuity. I am really liking this set right now during this proc meta, during this tanky meta. The thing about this set paired with a heavy armor setup is heavy armor typically has very low critical rating. This is a fact. But by running mechanical acuity, you get a guaranteed 5-second window where everything you do is guaranteed crits. Okay, all the damage you do is guaranteed crits during that time frame, and that's how we put people away. And so if you seen the Magden Elsa build that I put together, I actually was running a heavy armor mechanical acuity setup for her, and I found that to be true there as well. So you get all the benefits of running heavy armor, and you still get that pop or that explosiveness of that 5-second window. And the thing about it is you want to gear yourself up or kind of set the target up to be killed. So make sure you got all your dots on them. Make sure you got your blast bone summoned, and make sure that all your buffs are up, your heals are going, your armor's up, and here comes the 5-second window. Let's go. And just pure offense during that time frame, and you'll really do a lot of pressure to them. So this has been working out really well. Now the next set that we paired it with is going to be the Phoenix, and you can see when we're looking at the Phoenix set, Phoenix gives you max Magicka, Magicka recovery, and it gives you spell damage as the 4-piece. When you take damage while below 25% health, gain a damage shield that absorbs 12,000 damage for 10 seconds and deals 10,000 flame damage to nearby enemies. And so from a thematic standpoint, I think it's important to know that Voldemort is a master. Obviously, he's like a master wizard. He's one of the most feared wizards in the Harry Potter world, but he's also a master wizard specifically with flame damage. And so I think that thematically this is kind of cool. And this is actually the armor set that kind of brings the Horcrux idea together. And so if you watch the movies, it was impossible to kill Voldemort while these Horcruxes existed that contained an element or a piece of his soul in it. He was going to always be able to come back to life. And so the way that operated as a safety net for him to not be killed, Phoenix operates as a safety net for us to not be killed. So if we get a really heavy hitting Nightblade, and there's some very skilled Nightblades down in Imperial City CP on PC, if one of them opens on us and hits us super hard, and there's a couple that have that ability, I'm very impressed with these guys, this set saves us. It saves us. You know, we're running around with almost 30k health on this particular build, and then we have a 12k safety net shield that procs if we fall under 25% health, which gives us a huge counterplay window. They're not just going to kill us outright. Now this setup too, I'm a big fan of as far as Phoenix goes, because I've run this on sorcerers before. And so if you're a Magsorc that's running around Imperial City and you want to test this set out, it gives you a great safety net also. Aside from being able to shield, put up one shield or shield stack, you also have the Phoenix set covering your back in case you can't bar swap, you can't get shields up, whatever it is, can't break free. And so I'm a big fan of this right now, considering where performance is at and things like that. But so the whole plan for the Horcrux build was to have that safety net to save us and then not be without damage. We wanted to be able to actually do damage in a heavy armor setup. And so that 5-second window that comes around on this build makes us very dangerous. And so I like running Ring of Pale Order too. It gives us a lot. Our healing kit on this without Pale Order is really, really strong. With Pale Order, kind of puts us over the top. And so we've gone up against some really heavy hitting people before, and while I might not be able to get them out with this build, the very skilled heavy hitters, it's very hard for them to get me out. And even if they did get me low for whatever reason, this thing saves me. And if you look at that, this effect can occur once every 1 minute. And so at bare minimum, I just need to survive another minute before this thing's off cooldown again. So anyways, this has been interesting, and I think actually, yeah. So right now, currently, the way I have this set up is 6 heavy, 1 light. Okay, 6 heavy, 1 light, just to make it work. You can see here we've got spell damage, and spell damage. None of these are infused. We've got Nern honed on the weapon, Inferno staff, and then on the back one, right now we just have precise. Defending would probably be the better way to go, but to get the Phoenix stuff, it's complete RNG. And so, now that said, because you want to be mostly 5-piece, minimum you want to be 5-piece heavy, Phoenix is a light armor set. So you're going to have to put this together in jewelry, okay, and your weapons, and then you'll have one piece up here if you're running a mythic. That's just the way it's going to have to be. And to get these, it's going to be complete RNG through the 3,000 Telvar crates, the Phoenix crates. And so it might take you a while to put this together, but it works. Now if you want to change this and not do the Phoenix and you want to do something else, there's tons of other setups. You just won't have the, it won't be the Horcrux build, right? You won't have that safety net that saves you from death. So like I said, spell damage on this in its current form without infused here is 3,200 spell damage. I'll show you a screenshot of that. You'll also see where our spell and physical resistance in that screenshot is at, and where our resistances are at. The build's pretty solid for sure, and I'm a big fan of it. So let's jump into the stats over here on this end just to kind of look those over. So you can see our max Magicka is at 30,000, our max health is at 28,000, our max stamina is at 20,000. We do want our max stamina around the 20,000 because everything that we do on this, on our back bar, when we're applying our heals, is block cast capable. And what I mean by that is you can hold block while you're casting it and in turn take less damage, and so that's great. You can see our crit resistance is at 21, almost 2,200, and that'll work. And then our spell pen currently is only at 4,800, but that goes up by 1,500 when we summon a Blast Bones, and I don't know that we might have to be in combat for that. So yeah. So anyways, this will go up by 1,500 just because of a passive right here. While a Grave Lord ability is active, your spell and physical penetration is increased by 1,500. And so currently Blast Bones, when that's up and just getting ready to go to the target and hit them, it's going to hit them a little bit harder. So that's good. All right, and you can see the stats here when we buff up again here. We've already shown you the screenshot of it, but see 1,300 magic recovery, 1,200 health recovery, and our stamina recovery is at 1,000. This gets the job done. This works out really well for us just because of the way we play it. We're channeling a lot of heavy attacks when we're on cooldown. So mechanical acuity procs, all of our damage goes out, and then we reapply our buffs when mechanical acuity is on cooldown, and then we're channeling heavy attacks into a crushing shock or whatever, and so that works out very well. And then you can see right here we've got 26,000 spell resistance, almost 27, and then our physical resistance is 27,000, almost 28. The important thing to note about this is it could be a little bit more if we were running defending on our back bar, which we're not. So hitting the 30,000 resistances on this build isn't a problem. We do feel tanky for sure. I've had some very heavy hitters, very hard-hitting players tell me, you know, wow, that build is freaking tanky. And you know, and then if they get any level of success and they make this proc, then we've got a huge counterplay window. Let's look at the abilities here. This is going to be unbuffed. Right now we've got Force Pulse. If our enchant from our staff were to proc, we'll see that up to 2 nearby enemies will take 8,000 magical damage. if they're inflicted with a burning chill or concuss status effect. And so we'll see this occasionally jump. Crushing shock might be the better way to go, 100% honest. It gives you an interrupt, and if they're channeling an ability and you can hit them with it. So I will probably be switching this to crushing shock just to let everyone know. And unbuff, we're looking at Flame Clench. This is going to be our hard CC, and it has a little upfront damage. This is our blast bones, or our stalking blast bones, and the damage is increased the longer it has to chase people. It has a 2.5 second delivery time, so we just summon this right at the start of the fight, and there'll be a big attack going out. We'll talk about how the damage synergizes on this, and I do have some video footage of that as well. Degeneration is going to be our access to major sorcery. That gives us that plus 20% to spell damage, and then it's got a pretty respectable dot to it as well. The nice thing about this dot is it appeals to the Pale Order ring, so we do have a little hot coming in from that, and then this provides us burst damage heal for Pale Order. This provides us heal, and this provides us healing as well, and so that works out really well. I am currently running Blood Mist on this particular setup. The whole thing about this is a support build. The Horcrux build is a support build that is very durable. If we're taking a metric ton of damage from outside sources and we need to slow the death process or reposition ourselves, or somebody jumps on us and we want to assess the situation first, if you could say, oh, I panicked or whatever, this is a perfect panic button for you. Just hit Blood Mist, and you're going to take 75% less damage during that time frame. So you can assess how many enemies they are. You could even see what they are, and there's a bonus to popping back out of Blood Mist if you run stage 2 vampire. Right now we're only stage 1, but this was basically just for extreme outnumbered situations. You might want to pop into this. And currently we are running Fiery Rage on this particular build. The tooltip on this goes up over 10k, and I can tell you this, just like anything on any offensive ability on this particular build, when mechanical acuity procs, they're all very dangerous. Like this becoming a guaranteed crit when it's got a 15 or 16k tooltip and it's going to hit a guaranteed crit, dangerous. This when it's buffed up and doing over 3k damage per hit, and if you can get the bottom paragraph to proc, all guaranteed crits, very dangerous. Plus your weapon enchant hitting at the same time, very dangerous. This, every single dot of this critting is doing work, and this thing, when you hit them with a flame clench and drop this on top of them, or drop this then clench them, every tick of this is extremely dangerous. And so I'll show you a clip right now. As far as clearing mobs go, you can see that when mechanical acuity lines up, the damage is just ridiculous, and then the clear on this build is really respectable for being a support build. Like, you can run sewers solo, and you're so durable, and you got so much healing in your kit, and you are dangerous. That's what makes this the best build for pretty much anybody, especially newer players to Magcro that does not want to run a Harmony build. So I'm definitely sold on that. But mechanical acuity procs, watch out. This thing will absolutely chainsaw their life, and it's awesome. But watch the footage of the clear there. I think I actually pulled just a bunch of mobs and dropped this on them, and you can see they die pretty much before that even gets a chance to chop on them. But we are running resistant flesh, and this is our burst heal. For me, it will heal me from time to time. If I really get chopped down, I might throw this a couple times to get caught back up, but this is more so the support aspect of it. I throw this out to save other people. One of my earlier Voldemort videos, I don't remember which one it was, but we had a guy in the group that we were fighting a banner and he got caught in that necrotic slow, and it was really chopping on him. And I was able to throw out 2 of these burst heals, and both of them crit him for over 8k, and it got him his health back up and got him in the fight. And then you can see you grant the target spell and physical resistance equal to half the amount healed for 3 seconds. And so when I was critting him for 8k heals on that, he was getting an additional 4k spell and physical resistance to help him out. And so it's a lot of resistances just by throwing a heal on somebody, right? So this I'm a big fan of resistant flesh. And right now I'm running rapid regen. However, I do want to switch this to the other morph so it hits more targets. Rapid regen does give you a lot of healing in half the amount of time, but it's a single target use, and I don't want to have to spam this 3 times if I got 3 other people in the group. So the other morph would be the better way to go on that, but either morph works, but I would say the other morph, so you're just hit it once and you're done. I'm using Braided Tether. Braided Tether is a really cool ability, a lot of health coming in, and it's a bunch of really small hots if you've never seen it before, and it has an AoE effect to it. So I can tether myself to a corpse, and then I've got the same hot that I'm getting, just like 300, 400, 400, 400, 300, 400. Anyone that's around me is going to be getting that same hot as well. And so just tether to a mob, and then stand by your party mates, throw this out if they need a burst heal. And the healing kit on this is super strong. And then we are running Spirit Guardian. Spirit Guardian gives me an additional 10% damage mitigation on top of our great resistances, running 6 heavy and the 1 light right now. So an additional 10%. 10%, by the way, is the equivalent of major protection right now, since they lowered major protection from 30% down to 10. This is not named major protection. While active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the spirit. So if you had a way to stack major protection on top of this, you'd have 20% damage mitigation. But anyways, this is really nice. You could go with the other Spirit Guardian, Advanced Mender or whatever, for even more heals, but like I said, the kit on this, the healing kit on it, is so strong that haven't really needed it. If I were going to drop anything off of this, honestly, it would probably be here, and I would drop the rapid regen. And in dropping rapid regen, you could put a couple things there. It's kind of our flex spot. Expunge and Modify might be the way to go. Embrace the Power of Death, removing up to 2 negative effects from yourself and restoring 505 magic and stamina for each negative effect removed. While slotted, the cost of all your abilities is reduced by 3%. But so basically this becomes a very cheap cleanse, right? It only costs just under 2k health, and we've got 30k health to pull this off, and so many hots coming in. That cost is almost offset immediately on activation by the hots that are coming in. So if I wanted to take something off the bar, for me it's going to be rapid regen, and because we still want our burst heal, the hot on this is just too good to move away from, and it's 100% free. And the heal from the Spirit Guardian and the 10% damage mitigation is too good to move away from, so that becomes the thing that's got to go if we wanted a cleanse. And the other thing too is, let's say we're running into extreme outnumbered situations, and I would put Bone Totem there, Bone Totem, and then whatever morph. But place a totem of bone at your feet that gives you minor protection to you and your allies for 8 seconds, reducing damage taken by 5%. That's nice. After 2 seconds, the totem begins fearing nearby enemies every 2 seconds. And so when we're in the sewers or the districts and we're moving in the back alleys or moving down in the tunnels, and say we have a Zerg following us, if we're regularly running in outnumbered situations or mid-year mayhem, you're going to want to run Bone Totem and drop this in the tunnels as you guys are moving, as you're using the sewers to traverse. And then the entire enemy Zerg will run into this, and they better have immovables up or be off CC cooldown, have CC immunity. In that case, those few could actually move through this, whereas the other ones get caught in it. And the ones that move through it, your team can turn and burn them down and shorten the gap between, in numbers. So that's a skilled play that you would want to make by dropping this out. On our back bar, we are running Ravenous Goliath, and I can tell you this thing is extremely dangerous with mechanical acuity as well, because while transformed, your damage from light attacks restores health, and your fully charged heavy attacks restored health. That's great. You deal 1855 magic damage to nearby enemies every second. Heal for that amount. So anyone that's within melee range of you, if you've got 257 ultimate, this is the way to go, especially as a support. My job is to make sure that the rest of my team stays up, okay, while we're fighting. And so it's better for me to go into Ravenous Goliath, and everybody will recognize you as the healer, and it's very hard to kill you when you're in this form with the amount of damage. And so we start seeing stacking. The healing kit, super strong. The damage kit, super strong. And the fact that we have Ring of the Pale Order amplifying all the damage that we do. We're going to be seeing additional heals coming in. So it's a very fun build, Horcrux build. Anyways, we are Vampire Stage 1, like I said, and we are running the Apprentice for additional spell damage. Now, your Mundus Stone and your food are usually the things that you tweak, or you adjust those or modify those based on what race you're running, okay, or your play style. I'm always running out of Magicka on whatever it is. Okay, well then don't run spell damage Mundus, run the magic recovery Mundus, Max stats, I think, is the way to go on this build, because we want to hit the 20k stamina mark for block casting, dodge rolling, breaking free. We don't want our lack of stamina to be the reason that people are killing us, especially in outnumbered situations. So you really need to aim for that, and you're going to hit that through Bewitched Sugar Skulls. But if you wanted to try Witch Mother's Potent Brew or something that comes off that and risk, 1500 stamina or something like that, you do you. Now, another thing too is our stamina recovery is fairly low, and so having more stamina to draw from is important. 1500 I said earlier, but 15,000 max stamina with only 500 stamina recovery will get scary in outnumbered fights. If the enemy team has a dedicated person on you CCing you every 6 seconds, both with a hard CC and a soft CC, so they're stunning you and immobilizing you in every 6 seconds, becomes a problem. So hitting the 20k mark is important. Anyways, as far as passives and stuff like that, get all your class passives and weapon passives, things like that. I think we're still leveling even our resto staff, so yeah, look at that, only level 29. If you wanted to play around with the resto alt and then maybe switch it to Life Giver, you could do that, and run Goliath on your front bar and run the resto alt on the back bar. But I kind of like where we're at. We're a combination of, our healing kit is not lacking at all, so we don't need to add any extra thing like that. But if you wanted to, you could. And you can see that as far as light armor goes, we only have that one piece of light armor, so we only need the first 3 sections, and then heavy armor, you want all of those. And we are a Nord, and so the 2 big perks to Nord is almost 4k additional resistances right here, and then some more max stam, which is great, and then we have some built-in ult gen. And so that works out really well. Let's jump into the CP, and the Horcrux build will be done. So as we're looking here, we got 72 points in Elfborn, which increases our critical damage and critical healing by 23%. This is important because every 5 seconds, we have a 5-second window of mechanical acuity where everything we do is crit damage. And so knowing that that's coming around guaranteed makes this a safe bet. That critical damage is increased by 23%. Elemental Expert, increase your Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 14%. This is important because we do flame damage and magic damage, and so that's great. 70 points into spell erosion. Our current base spell pen comes from this right here. This is important, especially in a tanky meta where a lot of people are wearing heavy armor, so do not miss this right now. This is a point dump for us. I got 2 points into light or heavy attack with the destruction staff, and I got 51 points into mastered arms. Most of our heaviest hitting abilities are going to be considered direct damage, and so that direct damage is increased by 19%. I don't have any points into thaumaturge on this particular build, even when we're running the destro staff flame, and you can tell that the destro staff damage is considered damage over time because it shows up at the bottom of the character in red as opposed to white at the top when it's receiving damage. So that's important to know if you want to buff the damage from the destro alt. It looks to me like it's going to require bumping up your thaumaturge to increase that damage, although it doesn't read like a regular or normal damage over time effect. 56 points into Ironclad. This is very important. So most of the heaviest hitting abilities in the game are direct damage, and this reduces that by 20%. 56 points into Hardy for an extra 12% physical, poison, and disease damage mitigation. 56 points into Elemental Defender for an extra 12% flame, frost, shock, and damage mitigation. And 28 points into Thick Skin for an extra 12% damage mitigation to damage over time. We also have a class passive that reduces our damage over time as well, so you can run a little less here. And this puts us with the Unchained passive, which after we break free, I don't even think that we even have any stamina abilities to hit. So 56 points into Quick Recovery. This increases our healing received by 12%. And then Heavy Armor Focus increases, we got a little extra points in that to increase our physical resistance by 1,300, almost 1,400. 1 point into Siphoner. This gives them one extra thing to cleanse. And so I think that's important. 44 points into Break Free, and it reduces our Break Free cost by 17%. 75 points into Arcanist. It increases our magic recovery by 14%. Tenacity, 75 points in that, increases our magic and stamina recovery of fully charged heavy attacks by 14%. And because we're wearing heavy armor, we get additional to that as well. So we return, when we wind up a heavy attack on this, we get a lot of resources back. And I think that's very important. I had a choice between running this next one, Healthy, 75 points in that to increase our health recovery by 14%. Because we are a stage 1 vampire, our health recovery is reduced by a little bit. I think it's 10%. We'll look at it here. And so I had to decide, do we want that passive health recovery, an extra 14% of that, or do we want to move this over here and get an extra 14% stamina recovery? And so ultimately what I looked at was, well, we only have 500 stamina recovery, 600 stamina recovery currently. So what's 14% on top of that? It's less of a number or less effective as increasing our health recovery and getting passive healing coming in. This build was all about being durable, and this adds to that. So we have nothing here. If you were going to invest any points in here, it would either be in Tumbling or Shadow Ward, since we're block casting on our back bar. And so that is the CP, everybody. I think we covered everything. We looked at the build. We are running 5-piece Mechanical Acuity, 5-piece Phoenix, and we're running Prismatic Enchants on everything. We do not currently have our jewelry infused, so you could get more spell damage there, and we're running Pale Order. You do not want to run Malakath's Band on this build, because Malakath's Band does not allow you to do crit damage, and Mechanical Acuity is all about procking and doing crit damage, so the build would be broken with Malakath's Band. So anyways, here is where we're at. This is the Horcrux build. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome back. We are going to cover our second build of the day. This build is called the Avada Kedavra build. And one of the most dangerous and deadly spells in Harry Potter's realm or world is going to be the Avada Kedavra build that Voldemort uses. And so anyways, this build is kind of built around that premise or that thought process. Same way we kind of themed and built the Horcrux build, we did the same for the Avada Kedavra build. Let's jump right in. First item that we are running is the Ring of the Pale Order. Reason being is we have multiple dots on this build going out. And these dots are extremely dangerous, and Pale Order is going to have just a steady line of heals coming in from all the dot damage that we have going out. Normally when you run a mythic item, it breaks up a monster set. However, because this build is a front bar back bar setup, we were able to keep our monster set together. And the monster set that we are running is the Balor's monster set, and you can see the one piece gives us additional spell damage. Two piece, when you use an ultimate ability, you gain weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of the total ultimate consumed, and spell penetration equal to 23 times the amount. So this build features a 12k pen setup. We will have 12 plus K penetration on the build, which is great for the heavy armor meta that we are in, or the tanky meta that we're in right now. So having an extra pen goes a long way. This build, when you're buffed up, will have 4,200 plus spell damage also. And so 4,200 spell damage, 12k pen with a lot of dots and a lot of healing coming in makes it for a very dangerous build. The first or second armor set that we are running, aside from our monster set here, is Mechanical Acuity. And if you're going to run heavy armor on a caster, I think Mechanical Acuity might very well be the best set to run, because it gives you that 5-second window where you have 100% crit chance. And so heavy armor, for the most part, its critical rating is so low that you just can't count on any crit damage coming out of a heavy armor build. But with this, you're guaranteed that 5-second burst window every 18 seconds. And so what I find myself doing is channeling heavy attacks, reapplying my buffs, making sure the dots are on the target. The 5-second window rolls around, and then we just go off. And so anyways, Mechanical Acuity is working really well on this. Then the next set that we are running is Oblivion's Foe. And if you haven't seen this set, because I said we are running a front bar back bar setup, when we go to our back bar, the back bar will apply, when we use a soul magic ability, adds an extra 124 spell damage. When you deal damage with soul magic, you mark the target's soul, dealing 18,000 magic damage over 10 seconds. Now, a really cool thing about this, I think we might have to adjust our bars a little bit here. Forgot to do this. So, yep. All right. So you can see when we go to our back bar here and we're moving around on our resto bar, when we apply Soul Splitting Trap, which is a soul magic ability, to a target, it will add that dot to everyone within an 8-meter radius of it. So it's an AoE, okay? I target somebody, boom. Everyone within 8 meters gets that same dot on them. Now, just every single other person that gets that dot on them from Splitting Soul Trap will also get the dot from Oblivion's Foe. And so I really like that a lot. We'll be moving around on our resto bar, and we see a target, we make sure we're buffed up, and we apply Splitting Soul Trap, which is an AoE, hits every target, and also applies the Oblivion Foe dot. And now they already have 2 dots on them, and we haven't even started our rotation, and so that works out really well. So again, we've got Pale Order. All the dots, or a lot of the dots that we do, it's going to be healing us. 18% of all the damage that's outgoing is coming back as heals, and to a maximum of 2570 health per attack. So our Blast Bones will hit that, and our Crushing Shock will hit that, and then you cannot be healed by anyone but anyone other than yourself. Well, our healing kit on this build is so strong, we don't need heals coming in from anyone else usually. So it works out really well. But Ring of the Pale Order, Balor's monster set for that additional spell damage and additional pen, and then mechanical acuity, and then on that back bar we're using Oblivion's Foe. So now one other weird thing about this is if you wanted to completely set this up properly, you might want to... No, we'll keep it right the way it is right now. So that way when we're on our back bar, we don't lose the 124 spell damage from that. I was going to say you could switch this out with trainee pants and you would still hit your mechanical acuity 5 piece on the front bar. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. And so that makes that an extra piece. So if you wanted to put armor or the trainee there for an extra 1400 health, you could. But if you do that, you'll lose out on a little extra spell damage on the back bar. No point in doing that. So anyways, we are in pen on all these armor pieces, and we are multi-enchant effect, multiple effect enchant for everything. There we go. Holy moly. Except for this one for some reason. Don't know why we missed that, so we will change that. Also, these two are in training right now as far as trait goes. If you can get them in Impen, do that. I don't have transmute crystals to switch that over, so there that is. But I will show you a screenshot too, so you can see that we're at the 4,000 plus spell damage on this, and then you can also see that we've got the 12k pen on it. And the spell damage will go as high as 4,600 spell damage when you take into account bloodthirsty. So as soon as the target gets below 90% health, you know, only 10% of their health is gone, this starts scaling up. And then when you also look at this, we've got a spell damage glyph on the back bar. So as we're on that resto staff, if we turn around and tap somebody with the resto staff and hit the splitting soul trap and then switch to our front bar, we'll hit 4,600 spell damage. Very dangerous. Let's look at our unbuffed tooltips here real quick. So we've got Force Pulse. We are going to change this to Crushing Shock. Crushing Shock's the better way to go for sure. And we very rarely see that bottom paragraph, the damage from that, so Crushing Shock would be better and interrupt people that are doing channeled effects. We are using Flame Clench for our hard CC. We are using Blast Bones, and the Stalking Blast Bones has a really nice tooltip on it. It'll be at the 15k or so range, hits very hard. And then here's one of our dots, Degeneration, and this gives us our major sorcery, so we get an extra 20% spell damage by running this dot on there. And then here's another dot that we have, which is Shocking Siphon. Shocking Siphon will be another dot. If we've got a melee person that's up close to us or within attack range of us, they might catch that dot damage from the tether, but most of the time most people move out of the way of this. So what you'll want to do is shoot your blast bones into them and then tether the corpse of the blast bone with this, and then make sure you're fighting on top of that corpse of the blast bone. And any melee people are going to end up taking that shock or dot damage from this, which in turn is healing you through Pale Order. So that's really nice. You can also see that down at the bottom, while slotted, your damage done is increased by 3%. So that's good. And here's the heavy hitting. This is the Avada Kedavra part of the build, and the tooltip on this will go over 90k, and I'm still leveling it right now. Soul Assault, and Soul Assault 90k tooltip. Here's what I can tell you, and here's how you would play this build. You run up on somebody, make sure that your buffs are active. You got heals coming in through this, this, and this, or at least these two, and maybe there's no corpse to tether just yet for this, but usually there is. So you at least got these going. You make sure you hit them with Splitting Soul Trap, which is going to give them that dot, and then they're going to get the dot from Oblivion Foe, since that's on your back bar. Then you're going to switch to your front bar, make sure that Degeneration's on them, and now they have that dot, and you'll summon a Blast Bones. Blast Bones goes out and hits them for direct damage. You're now proccing mechanical acuity. The Blast Bones that hit them, you'll make sure that Soul Siphon targets that, and then you'll fight on top of that. And so you got 2 dots that are getting crits on people. Oblivion Foe is ticking on the person. You can summon another Blast Bones, Heavy Attack, Crushing Shock, or just go straight into Soul Assault. I can tell you this, if you time or wait to use Soul Assault to Mechanical Acuity first procs, you will get 5 seconds of guaranteed crits on the target with Soul Assault, and it'll hit them anywhere, player character, for 10 to 11k, okay, per tick. 10 to 11k just every second. Boom, boom, boom. It's going to chop right through them. So wait until Mechanical Acuity procs and hit that, and it'll buzzsaw through their life. And you've got all kinds of dot pressure going off as well between these two, and Oblivion Foe, and this dot pressure as well. So multiple dots, multiple crits, big hits with your Blast Bones, and then Heavy Attack, Crushing Shock will be the play. And make sure you hit them with Flame Clinch every 6 seconds. And that's pretty much how this plays. Mechanical Acuity procs, get them out of there. Other than that, just maintain your buffs and wind up heavy attacks and until the next Mechanical Acuity proc comes around. As far as class passives, get them all. And, well, let's look at the back bar here real quick, sorry. Soul Splitting Trap, this is how we're going to initiate the Oblivion Foe dot, okay, and this has a dot of its own, so that's great, and it's an AoE, so anyone within that 8 meters of the target you hit, they'll get it as well. Resistant Flesh, I love this burst heal. You know, and I'm not worried about the health recovery reduction for myself, but I've seen this crit 8,000 plus, 8,500 plus on targets, which were really low health, and it'll basically give them another 4k resistances. So I land a burst heal on them and 4k additional resistances. So this is my burst heal. This also gives us resistances. Braided Tether is going to be my hot, and whenever you have a corpse attached to that, so it's a lot of health coming in, and it comes in very quickly. And then you see at the bottom, while slotted, your healing done is increased by 3%. That's great. I run Spirit Guardian because Spirit Guardian gives you that, while active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the Spirit instead. That's great because that 10% is the equivalent to Major Protection right now. And because that's not named Major Protection, if you have a way to acquire Major Protection, you could have both going simultaneously for 20% damage mitigation. But it's nice that this gives you a flat 10% damage mitigation. We're in a heavy armor setup, and we're fairly tanky, and we've got additional protections through our CP, so we're pretty tanky. And then we're running Beckoning Armor. So when our Blast Bones hits, and then we hit this Shocking Siphon, and then we'll morph it. I'll have to look and see what morphs we decide to go, but it's just another dot. We go stand on that spot, and that's where we're trying to fight at, to force a melee character to fight, or if it's range. But in the process of standing on that Shock Siphoned area and doing dot damage, our Beckoning Armor, if anyone's fighting us from range, we'll pull them in and make them stand right on top of that dot. And of course they'll want to move away from us quickly, but Beckoning Armor is the way to go for sure. And then I also like Ravenous Goliath. This is our oh no button. I hit Ravenous Goliath if I get bursted way down and I'm taking so much pressure I feel like I'm on my back foot, and we'll end up going into Ravenous Goliath. I can tell you that Ravenous Goliath is very dangerous when Mechanical Acuity procs. It's basically, if you want 20 seconds of just beast mode, you would hit Ravenous Goliath, and when Mechanical Acuity procs, that AoE pulse that's going out that's healing you for the damage done would also be critting targets. And so melee classes, if I were fighting a really good melee class, I would probably try and save up for Ravenous Goliath and use that, and then just kind of bully them while I have it and line everything up during that time frame. At the end of the day too, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I guess this would be the play if you're coming off your back foot, but if you can get the jump on people and proc your Mechanical Acuity and then just start buzzsawing their life, that might be the play as an opener. So many different ways to play this. I really like that. Okay, all your class passives. as always, you should do that. Destruction Staff, all your weapon passives. I'm still leveling Resto Staff, but I will pick up all the passives there. We do have 1 light armor piece on this. This is 6 heavy, 1 light, so make sure you get the first 3 passives from your light armor and then all your heavy armor passives. We are a stage 1 vampire, and you can use Blood Mist or the other Morph Elusive Mist if you want, but you only need the first 2 of these as a stage 1 vampire. This would be for stage 2. Now, if I was going to be playing that hopping into Blood Mist here instead, and then hopping out of Blood Mist to get this additional spell damage, that's a way to drive up your spell damage even more for a short duration. And in that case, we would actually decide to go stage 2 vampire. But as far as soul magic goes, you just completing chapters in the main storyline up until you defeat Molag Bal, and you can find guides for that online that'll help you get Soul Assault. This isn't completely leveled yet, but has a 90k plus tooltip on it. That's our Avada Kedavra spell, and with Mechanical Acuity procced and Balor's going and the pin from Balor's, this will chop through them. Tanky meta or not, they're gone. Okay, they better stand there and just hold block, and if you hit them with a clinch and they have to break free of that, and they do eat some ticks from this, it's going to be trouble for them. So let's see here. Eventually I'll have the Mages Guild. We'll get more of the passive, so that way our degeneration it has a cheaper cost. We might actually trigger Might of the Guild, which would be awesome. And eventually we will also get the Undaunted. I haven't done hardly any BGs with Voldemort. Leveled him completely in PvP and for the most part, and I've just recently started doing dungeons with him. And we are a Nord. We really like the Rugged passive, which gives us also almost 4,000 additional physical and spell resistance, and then the Stalwart passive gives us extra stamina and ult gen, so that works out really well. So this build is very dangerous. I'll show you some clips of that so you can see. Just clearing some NPCs, and this will be a build that I will be getting BG footage on as soon as I can actually get in a queue. I've sat in a handful of queues now for 30+ minutes and not been able to do BGs, so not sure what's going on there. Let's look at the CP. 48 points in Elfborn. We do have a 5-second guaranteed critical chance window, so our critical damage is going to do 18% more damage. That's great. 75 points in Elemental Expert, so our flame and magic damage does 14% more damage. We do both of those. Spell Erosion. This is basically for a little extra pen in the build. Pen goes really far right now in our tanky heavy armor meta. 51 points into Master at Arms. Most of the heaviest hitting damage abilities in the game are direct damage, and so that's important. However, this build is full of dots. We've got a lot of dots through Oblivion's Foe and Soul Magic, and so anyways, it's important to have the 56 points here in Thaumaturge, so that way we have the extra 20% dot damage. 56 points in Ironclad, so that way we have the extra 20% damage mitigation from direct damage. All the heaviest hitting, most of the heaviest hitting abilities in the game are direct damage, so this cuts that. You can see we have a point dump here with 4 points into critical resistance. 56 points into Hardy for an extra 12% physical, poison, and disease damage mitigation. So 12% extra mitigation there. Another 12% mitigation to magic damage here, and 28 points for 12% damage mitigation to damage over time. And then as far as Necromancers go, they also get a class passive that gives them dot damage mitigation, so that works out really well. 56 points into Quick Recovery for an extra 12% healing received, and then a point dump here, 14 points into Heavy Armor Focus. 1 point into Siphoner. This is very important. The reason being is we carry so many dots on this build, and if somebody is running a purge or a cleanse that only removes one of those dots, we're hoping that it removes the Siphoner proc and not one of our actual dots that is eating their face, and so that would work out really well. Warlord, we've got 44 points into that for 17% reduction to break free, so that's very important. And 75 points into Arcanist for an extra 14% magic recovery, 75 points in tenacity, so that way we get an extra 14% from our Destro heavy attacks back in the tank, and that's how we're able to run such low resistance or recoveries. We'll look at the recoveries and the stats here too real quick. I think we may have missed that, I don't know. And then healthy, we've got 75 points in that for an extra 14%. Now, thing about this too is that heavy armor focus gives us more stats on, or the heavy armor passive gives us more stats back when we do a heavy armor or a heavy attack, and this also adds to that, so that's great. Now, if you wanted to take the 75 points out of health recovery and put it in a moon cap because you're going to go to the 2 or 3 or 4 level vampire, by all means do that and get more stamina recovery. Nothing here in Tumbling or Shadow Ward. Everything on our healing bar is block cast capable though, so that's important to know. If you wanted to put points there, you could, and occasionally we'll dodge roll to avoid some damage. So that is our CP, and again, I'll share that video here so you can see the footage of us just kind of clearing, and you can see how mechanical acuity and the damage all works out really well on this build. Another thing too, we're going to stick with this as our ultimate, but you could run the Destro ultimate here if you wanted to run something different. There's all kinds of, you could run with Ice Comet or whatever, Shooting Star. There's a lot of ultimates. Run with, Glacial Colossus or whatever. But for us, because we're Avada Kedavra, this is our Avada Kedavra spell. Like I said, we wait until mechanical acuity procs, and then we buzzsaw them in half. So, all right, Avada Kedavra build. There you go. Be safe. Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we're going to look at the very last build of our 3-part series here for the Magicka Necromancer. This is the Master of Death build, and I will be running this in Imperial City during Mid-Year Mayhem, and most of the time probably I'll either be found on this build or the Avada Kedavra build, which was our second build of the day. But let's jump right into this build. So obviously we are wearing Imperial Physique on this build, and so the first set that we're going to be running is Imperial Physique. This is a front bar back bar setup, and we are running this with no mythic items. That's important to know. Oh, sorry, we are running a mythic item with this. No mythic jewelry, I should say. But anyways, Imperial Physique is the first set that we are running, and we have paired Imperial Physique with Clever Alchemist on our back bar. So when we go to our resto bar, we can buff up and then hit a potion and then tap our light attack for that extra 348 spell damage. Then we go to our front bar where we are running Willpower. And I need to infuse his jewelry still. It'll give us another 100 spell damage right now. When this, everything is procced on this, Clever Alchemist, and then we go to our front bar, we will hit 6k spell damage on this because we are using Thracian Stranglers. So killing an enemy grants you a stack of Slow's Call for 1 hour up to a maximum of 50 stacks. Each stack increases your weapon or spell damage by 23, reducing your max health by 120 and reducing effectiveness of your damage shields. We're not running damage shields on this, so that doesn't matter that much for us. Basically, it's just how quick can we build up the stacks to get to that extra almost 1200 extra spell damage using Thracians. Now, if you're in Imperial City and you're dying often, you probably won't want to use either one of these. You're not going to want to use Thracians because it takes a while to get to your 50 stacks to get up to the full potential of this, and you probably don't want to be wearing Imperial Physique because you have to run around with a minimum of 10k Telvar on it. So when you look at the bottom there, while you were in Imperial City, you tap into the power of the Telvar stones you are carrying, increasing your health, magic, and stamina by 7,100 while you have 4 times the Telvar stone multiplier. This effect is increased by 600%. So when you look at our base stats right now, we're running around with 35, almost 36k max Magicka, 36k max health, and this is after the Thracian reduction. Before our Thracian starts lowering our health, this build runs around at 42k max health, and then our max stamina is at 27,000. So 36,000, 36,000, 27,000. Those are really crazy stats. And then we're not so much worried about our our magic recovery because we are 6 heavy, 1 light, and the 1 light is the Thracian's gloves, and then everything else is heavy armor. But through heavy armor passives and through our CP, because we are Imperial City CP right now, we get a lot of resources when we channel a heavy attack, and it's very easy to channel heavy attacks on this build. Once you apply your dots, summon a blast bone, heavy attack, crushing shock, and does a lot of damage. And then our base health recovery is going to be just under 1,000, and our stamina recovery is 641. Like I said, we've got 50 stacks of Slode's Call on our Thracians right now, but when we switch to our back bar and trigger Clever Alchemist, we'll hit the 6k spell damage mark, and show you that screenshot if we haven't already. And as far as our armor goes, when we buff up on our back bar here, look at a couple things. See, our resistance is 29,000 and 30,000. That's really nice. 2,200 crit resistance, 1,300 magic recovery, 1,200 health recovery, and almost 1,200 stamina recovery. That gets it done when we pop a potion on the build because of the way it plays. Okay, and that is on our back bar. Now on our front bar, I'd say the only place that this thing is lacking is going to be in the spell pen. If you remember that our Avada Kedavra build is an offensive build, it's got 4,600 spell damage and 12k pen. And we'll probably only get up to 3k pen on this, but we're running 1,500, 1,600 more spell damage. So the damage is comparable in that regard, but the stats are just overall stats are much higher on this. Because the stats are higher, it's easier to survive on this build. If that makes any sense. So more spell damage, more survivability on this because of the bloated stats, and our penetration is a little less, but we still hit very hard on it. So this will probably be the build that I will run in Imperials during Mid-Year Mayhem for sure. And so again, just as a recap, Thracians, light armor, multi-enchant effect, it's divines. Impen would probably be the better way to go, and Imperial Physique, that's going to give us all the stats we need, and then we have willpower on our front bar, Clever Alchemist on our back bar. So okay, willpower adds 1712 max Magicka and adds another 201 spell damage, so that works out great. Now if you don't want to run a front bar back bar setup, you could just put Clever Alchemist on both your front and back bar. You'll lose about 200 spell damage and 1700 max mag, but it'll be very easy to proc Clever Alchemist as opposed to only proccing it when you're on your back bar and in combat. So that is that, and let's look at the abilities here unbuffed. So our Force Pulse, I'm going to be changing this to Crushing Shock. Has pretty good tooltip on it. This is going to be a 9 to 10k against NPCs, and it'll hit enemy players for half that, but it still hits really hard. Almost 6k tooltip on our Flame Clench, and keep in mind too, if you look, like we're saying, we're unbuffed right now, and buffed is another 2k spell damage. So these tooltips when I say unbuffed, they'll actually get way better. We're probably at 4100 for each one of those elemental damage, fully buffed, and this goes up significantly. This goes up significantly. Like, we're at 4k spell damage right now, and we have a 17k tooltip on our blast bones. And when you add another 2,000 spell damage on top of that, this will probably be close to a 20k or more blast bones. Okay, and you can see we got almost a 20k tooltip on our degeneration. This is our source of major sorcery. And then we've got 22, almost 23,000 tooltip on our shock siphon. This is only level 2, and then I need to morph it, so we'll get so much more damage out of this once we start doing that. But our dots are pretty nice. Now this, however, is a grounded effect, and then the stream does damage as well. So NPCs, it's easy to get them to stand in it. Player characters, not so much. But if they're a stamina player and they're up on you, they might get hit by the tether. And then you can see we've got almost a 14,000 tooltip on our Fiery Rage, and this goes up to about 16k per tick against NPCs, and so we're hitting player characters for 8k to 9k, we'll say, whenever we drop this on them. This does not do an immobilization, a slow, a root, or a stun, and so usually you need to stun them into that and make them stand there and eat the damage. So it's just a combined pressure, this, and everything, and it kills them. So your whole offensive kit on their head. We've got Resistant Flesh. This is a really nice heal if you haven't used it before. Now it does apply Minor Defile to yourself, which really isn't that big of a deal. It lowers your health recovery by 8%. We are a stage 1 vampire on this build, so it's whatever as far as the health recovery goes. But the burst heal on this is pretty nice. That's almost a 12k burst heal, and whenever you hit somebody that's low, if you happen to crit them with a nice heal on this, you give them almost 4 to 5k extra resistances for 3 seconds, and so that's really nice. And then we're running rapid regen. I'll probably want to switch this to the other morph. Rapid regen almost has, it's still being leveled, but it's probably going to have a 20k tooltip over 5 seconds. That's great. But the other morph, the duration is doubled, but it hits three times the target, so we'll look at that. We are running braided tether, and you can see this has an 18,000 tooltip on it, which is really nice, and it increases our healing done by 3% down there at the bottom, so that's great. Basically wherever there's a corpse, just attach to it, and you've got a steady stream of healing coming in. The healing kit on this, just like the Horcrux build and the Avada Kedavra build, the healing kit on a Magcro, if you set it up this way, is ridiculous. And we are a heavy armor build, pushing really good resistances, and then through our CP we're getting additional resistances as well, so we feel very tanky. We are running Spirit Guardian. We like that additional 10% damage mitigated. You can see that in the second part there, and that helps out a lot. Basically 10% additional damage mitigation is the equivalent of major protection right now, and so that's great. While this is not named major protection, so if you were able to acquire major protection from another source, you'd have 20% damage mitigation. But anyways, Spirit Guardian is the way I like to go, and if you want more healing, do the Advanced Mender, the other option, but I would recommend this one. And we're using Beckoning Armor. This is my source of major resolve for our armor buff, and then while active, enemies that strike you with a ranged attack will be pulled towards you once every 3 seconds. And I like this because I don't want sorcerers or mag blades or bow gankers, anybody that hits me from range to think that they can just free cast on me. This thing's going to yank them in, and then they're in the fight at my toes, and that works out really well. While we are just a ranged person, this is more likely to land during that time frame, and we can fight people right up front, right on us, or fight at ranged very well. And we're running Ravenous Goliath. I really like Ravenous Goliath, as a oh no button. And so if I get bursted down, there's some really good Nightblades in the game currently, and if they open up with a really heavy burst on me, I can go into this, and unless it's extreme numbered situations, they're probably not going to kill me in this just because of the ridiculous healing kit that this has. Plus this is healing me as well for anyone that's in melee range, and it gives you that huge burst of max health, and it restores 30,000 health. So this is a great oh no button, but awesome healing kit. Now something else that you could do, which we saw on the Avada Kedavra build, is if you wanted to run the soul magic morph, and let's drop that down there. Look at the tooltip on this. This is unbuffed. I got 4,000 spell damage right now, unbuffed. 112k tooltip. If I add another 2k spell damage, this thing goes up to almost 140k tooltip. 140k tooltip on Soul Assault. If a Nightblade attacks you, they are dead. Let me tell you, because they cannot stealth while this hits you. And if you pop an immovable pot and hit this on the, or well, yeah, an immovable pot, but a detect pot, and hit this on them, they can't figure out why they can't stealth, and this thing will roast them alive. So really, really fun and crazy tooltip, and you can see we're still leveling this up. It's only level 3, so 140k tooltip on this Soul Assault when it's going to be fully leveled, and we are fully buffed, and that is scary. So we are running the Apprentice right now for additional spell damage, and we are a stage 1 vampire. You could go higher stage vampire, but there's really no need for the increased costs. You can see that Slode's Call right now and how that works. Slode's Call right now, you can see phone call there. Slode's Call, you can see that we've still got 43 minutes on it. Basically the way that works is when you get a kill, that stack stays on you for 43 or 50 minutes, stays on for 1 hour. If you stack another kill on top of that, you don't start losing stacks or lose your stacks until 1 hour has passed. So we're good right now. If you were to look at my stats, just back out of this and look right here, 50 stacks of Slode's Call, and I've got 43 minutes of that buff right now. So we'll stay at the 4k spell damage until we hit that 6k fully buffed. And I think that is about it. Little low on the pen, like we said. It'll get up over 3k, maybe 4k on the penetration, but it's getting the job done just because of the ridiculously high tooltips on everything. And when we run into the really tanky people, this comes into play, our max stats and the ridiculous healing that the build has, and we end up getting them anyways. Lower pen, not a problem against the tankier people because of the crazy high tooltips. And I can tell you, I don't care how tanky they are, when we hit them with a flame clench and we're fully buffed up, and then we hit them with 140k tooltip Soul Assault, if they're not able to stand there and hold block, which it's going to burn through their stamina, but that's 70k damage on a player character. All right, you cut 140k in half, that's 70k hitting a player character, and they could be at cap resistances. If they're not going to hold block through it, they'll die. It's hitting them pretty hard, and you'd have to assume that we'll probably have this blast bone summoned, and then hit them with this before we go into that. So we've got multiple damage sources going into them on top of this, so pretty crazy. Anyways, class passives, make sure you get all your class passives, make sure you get all your weapon passives. I'm still leveling the resto staff, go ahead and get all those. And light armor, we only have one piece of light armor, but get the top 3. You don't need any more than that for light armor. This is a heavy armor build. Get all your heavy armor passives. We are a stage 1 vampire, like I said. This is a flex spot. If you want to pull this out, your tooltips will go down a little bit, and you could put mist form in there if you don't feel comfortable running around with Imperial Physique. That's fine. Another thing that you could drop on the bar is going to be Soul Split or Soul Splitting Trap. You could put that right here. It's an AoE, or it hits within an 8-meter radius. So if you wanted to apply that 13k dot on 3 or 4 enemy players or NPCs, that's another more reliable dot that you could put down here on the bar. Okay, and that works great. And then the last thing is, you can see that we're a Nord. We like the rugged passive for the extra 4K resistances, and our max stamina is 1500, and when you take damage you gain ultimate, which works out really well for this. This is 180 ultimate, and then the back is 257. And so this, I use this Soul Assault in my Avada Kedavra build, and the tooltip on it was okay. You can see the tooltip in the Master of Death build is ridiculous. Okay, and if you've never seen this ultimate before, it is under the Soul Magic ability, and you just need to complete chapters in the main quest. 6 of them. You know, technically you got to complete more than that, but you got to do to where you're level 6, and then you will unlock this and then morph it to Soul Assault. Really ridiculously high tooltip that saws through people. Lots of fun. Let's look at the champion points, and we are done. Champion points for this setup are going to be very similar to the Avada Kedavra build, because we are running multiple dots on it, and as a matter of fact it's the same. So if you saw that, you've seen this. Elfborn, 72 points. It's giving us an extra 23% critical damage. That's great. And our critical healing. This is more so important for our critical healing because we're not running the same sets as the Avada Kedavra or Horcrux build. So we'll see a lot of critical healing from this. And then when we do see crit damage, it will be very heavy. Now, if you want to run your healing tooltips up higher, you could take this points out of here pretty easily on this build and drop it into Blessed, or split them. And so that's an option for you. 75 points in Elemental Expert to increase our flame and magic damage by 14%. We do both of those. And we only have 16 points into Spell Erosion. Another thing I guess you could do if you wanted to take the 72 points out of this altogether, because you already saw that our tooltips on our healing and everything is adequate and our max stats are adequate, you could put it into Spell Erosion and get a lot more pen out of the build. And actually I might have talked myself into it. I'll probably make that change right now even. Look at this. Let's see what type of there you go. 5200 spell pen. We'll look at our total pen when we get out of here. And then 51 points into Master at Arms. A lot of the heaviest hitting abilities in this game are direct damage. And Master at Arms increases that damage, so we got a plus 19% there. And then we've got 56 points into Thaumaturge, increasing our dot damage, our damage over time, by 20%. And so that means our Soul Assault, that means our Elemental Rage, the Destro ultimate, and then the 2 dots that we have built into the build. So that's nice. 56 points in Ironclad increases our direct damage, decreases our direct damage taken by 20%. Most of the heaviest hitting abilities in the game are direct damage, so this helps you cut that damage by 20%. 56 points into Hardy for an extra 12% physical, poison, and damage mitigation. 56 points into Flame, Frost, Shock, and Magic mitigation for an extra 12%. Thick Skin, we've got 28 points there for an extra 12%. And then Necromancers have a class passive that gives you even more resistance to dot damage, so this can be less than the others, so that's great. 56 points into Quick Recovery, so our healing received is increased by 12%, and I've got like only 14 points in Heavy Armor Focus for an extra 1374. This is kind of a point dump. 1 point in a Siphoner, so they have 1 extra thing to cleanse off of them. There is a high chance that if you have Siphoner, just 1 point into it, and you put a bunch of dots on somebody and they use a cleanse and it only removes 1 item, it might very well only remove the Siphoner proc and not the actual dot damage that's killing them. 44 points into Warlord, and so this decreases our break free by 17%. And 75 points into Arcanist, increases our magic recovery by 14%. 75 points in Tenacity, increasing our heavy attack resource return by 14%. This also pairs with a heavy armor passive that returns resources on heavy attack, and between the two of those, this works out really well, running that low of recoveries, you know, in the 1,000 to 1,300 recovery range. As long as you're channeling heavy attacks, you'll be able to stay in fights. We're only a stage 1 vampire, so we've got 75 points into health recovery for an extra 14% health recovery. If you wanted to take some out of this and put it into Mooncat for more stamina recovery, for breaking free, dodge rolling, and block casting, you do you. It'll work out perfect. Nothing here in Tumbling or Shadow Ward. You could also put some of those points in here if you find that stamina is an issue. So that's how we got it set up. Spell Erosion. Let's jump back in and see where we're at on... there you go, 5,200, and we'll add another 1,500 on top of that because of the class passive, I believe. Let's double check. Right here, while a Grave Lord ability is active, your spell and physical penetration is increased by 1,500. So when we summon a Blast Bones, our pen goes up 1,500. So this, I might leave that there. That might be a more reliable, that's going to help our damage a lot. So now we're at 6,700 pen, and that's good considering we have ridiculously high tooltips on things. And I don't think our tooltips should have changed at all on anything. Nope, we're good. So we hit super hard. So there it is, everybody. Horcrux build. That's a support-based build that still can do damage because of the armor sets that it's running, and it has a really good safety mechanism with one of the other 5-piece sets. And we've got a lot of healing coming in from that build through just the Necromancer's healing kit and Pale Order, and then we've got the Avada Kedavra build, which is the damage version of this. I say damage, the healing kit on that Avada Kedavra build is really strong too. It's just that we amped up the damage output on it, and then here we are with the Master of Death build. And you really want to be probably an advanced Magicka Necromancer player to run this build because of the risk and reward factor. You are running Imperial Physique, and you've got at least a bare minimum of 10k Telvar on the line at all times, and you are also running Thracian Stranglers, and you don't want to have to build up 50 stacks on your Thracian, get killed, and then have to do it again, get killed, and then have to do it again and get killed. So if you're experiencing minimal deaths, this would be the way to go. Now, let's give you one last thing here. Let's say you're somebody that says, hey, I don't feel comfortable wearing Imperial Physique, especially not with Mid-Year Mayhem coming up or whatever. You could switch all the Imperial Physique pieces out for Shacklebreaker. Shacklebreaker is kind of your poor man's Imperial Physique, okay? You're going to lose roughly 7k stats across the board. So we'll go down to, we'll say 28,000 max Magicka. Our max health is going to lose 7k on top of this, so we'll be in the 28,000 range on that. 27,000 range on that, and we'll be down at the 20,000 range. Okay, so those stats with Shacklebreaker are very comparable. Like our max stats are very comparable to what they compare very well to the Avada Kedavra build and very well to the Horcrux build. Okay, it's just that the Imperial Physique build with the 10k Telvar is an absolute monster. Okay, but Shacklebreaker, sub that in for Imperial Physique, and you could run this build also. If you do not like Thracians and having to build the stacks, or you don't have Thracians, just sub in one of the armor pieces here, and you can throw in, I would put in an Imperial Physique there, and then take this Imperial Physique out, and you can put in Ring of the Wild Hunt. You could put in Malakath's Band, and you could put, I could, if you're taking this out, if I wanted to increase my damage output by another 25%. So what is, we said that this will get up to 140k tooltip. Let's do the math here real quick, because it's going to be silly. 140,000 tooltip plus 25%. see, 140,000 tooltip plus 25%. That's 35,000 extra damage, so it'd be 175,000 tooltip on your Avada Kedavra spell. So that would be silly. Yeah, 175,000 tooltip on a soul assault. Actually, the tooltip won't go up. It doesn't represent, I don't believe, the plus 25% from Malakath. So you just take the 140,000 and add 25% to it, and that's how you get the 175. But even if it's not, it's still just, that's a lot of damage. So sub out Imperial Physique, put Shackle Breaker, still do the prismatic enchants on everything, okay? And I've got infused spell damage, and this would be infused spell damage for another 100 spell damage, but it is what it is. We are running Nirnhone Willpower because of the front bar, back bar setup, and Flame Enchant on that, and then on the back bar we've got that spell damage glyph where we tap them with the spell damage on the back bar just after hitting Clever Alchemist, and go to the front bar and we'll have that 6k spell damage. That's our 3 builds. If you guys have any questions, let me know. There's tons of builds for Magcros out there. I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is the learning curve with Magicka Necromancer, and just spending time with the class and figuring out what you can and can't do with it. I definitely say go heavy armor with it because the damage output is comparable to light armor. You might as well be tanky, especially in this tanky meta. It's not like switching to a light armor setup is going to equate to so much more significant damage that, you know, that's why I can run light armor, because the damage is just that much more. No, you can see I'm in 6 heavy right now on this build, the Avada Kedavra build, and the Horcrux build, and we're still pushing 3 to 6k spell damage, right? And our tooltips are getting it done, and our healing kit on this is really good. So anyways, in the descriptions below, I'll have the 2 low level. As I was leveling, I level all my tunes in Imperial City, and you'll get to see those. If you haven't looked at those before, definitely check them out. It was a lot of fun running around the sewers with this guy, and at some point here in the near future we will get some battleground clips of the different builds, probably the Avada Kedavra build, because this build wouldn't do anything. Maybe the modified version of this with Shackle Breaker, but the Avada Kedavra build we could take right into BGs. And I sat in BGs a couple times for 30 plus minutes trying to get BGs, and I haven't been able to get in BGs. I don't know what's going on, but anyways, here's the builds. You guys be safe out there. Thanks.